After coaching thousands of runners and competing against some of the best in the world, I've noticed that not all running workouts are created equal. Some will make you faster, stronger, and more efficient, and some, they'll just waste your time, or even worse, get you injured. So in this video, I'm ranking the best and the worst running workouts based on science. With the worst being F tier, the workouts you should probably never touch, and the absolute must-dos being S tier. And at the end, I'll crown one workout as the absolute best of the best, and one as the worst of the worst. So here's how we are ranking each workout. First, we look at effectiveness. Does this workout actually improve your speed, your efficiency, or your endurance? Then we look at practicality. Can most runners do it, or is that unrealistic? Finally, we look at progression and injury risk. Can you actually do it safely, or will it just end up breaking you? A good workout should make you better and not just tired. And I really want to get into the Norwegian method and zone 2 training, because I got some strong opinions about that. But first, let's look at repeated max sprints with short rest. Whenever I go to the track for a track session, I always see these runners who will run for maybe 200 meters all out, and then they will just walk back to the beginning or back to the 200 meter mark and start again, maybe with 20 seconds or 30 seconds of rest, and then they do that for maybe 4 or 5 times. But if you look at sprinters, there's a reason why they're training for 2 or 3 hours and all they're really doing is 4 by 60 meters all-out sprint. It's because if you're sprinting with all-out effort and short breaks, then you are overloading what's called the anaerobic system extremely quickly. They also impose a high injury risk, especially for the Achilles, the hamstrings, and the hip flexors. In fact, they're really not good for anyone who wants to train effectively. So repeated sprints with short rest times go straight in the F tier. So what about steady state runs? You know, the type of run that most recreational runners do? They go out running 30 to 60 minutes at a moderately hard pace every single time they go for a run. This is your typical neighborhood hero who goes out maybe 3 times per week and tries to beat their 10K time every single time. These workouts improves what's called your aerobic capacity, and they can be used at base building, but they lack the top end benefits that'll make you faster. They are best used for training that race pace effort if you're going out for 5 or 10K, and to see how you actually feel when you're running at that pace, but also to get your body accustomed to running at that pace. But the downsides are that you risk doing what's called gray zone training, meaning you're going too hard for recovery, but not hard enough for maximum gains. That's why I've put steady state runs in the B tier. So now you're probably wondering, should I do VO2 max intervals then? We'll get to that in a second. But first, let's talk about incline running on a treadmill. If you've ever been in a gym in January, then you would have seen people doing these workouts. They set the treadmill at a maximum 15% incline, and then they start walking or running. But these workouts have a really big problem. You see, trying to run like that encourages poor running form. You need to do excessive forward lean and shorten your steps, which will impact your normal running form if you're doing it too much. They don't mimic real-world running mechanics, and even worse, they overload your calves and your Achilles, potentially leading to injuries. These workouts look intense, but they're really just junk stress. So they go straight in the F tier. There is a workout you can do at the gym that is slightly better, but before we get to that, let's talk about something a bit more specific: the progressive long runs. I was first introduced to this type of training by my old trainer when I first got into professional triathlon. They look pretty easy on paper, but in reality, they can be brutal. An example could be running 20 kilometers with the last 5 kilometers in half marathon or even 10K pace. This type of workout trains your endurance and your race pace ability at the same time. It also helps develop what's called fatigue resistance. Or put another way, it teaches your body to maintain speed when you're tired. It's best used for runners training for a half marathon, marathons, or even ultras. The downsides are that they come with a high risk of overtraining, and you need to avoid overdoing them, which is why I've put them in the A tier. So let's talk about HIIT workouts. So jump squats, burpees, sprinting in a circuit. If you've ever been to a CrossFit workout, this is the type of training that they're doing. This type of workout is great to get you in shape and get your heart rate up, but they lack specificity. meaning they have nothing to do with running. You see, to make your body efficient at running, you have to do something that is movement specific. Or put another way, you need to run. So these workouts are best suited for people who just want to get in shape, but they don't really improve your endurance or your efficiency. And they can actually interfere with your running performance, because if you're doing too many HIIT workouts, then the quality of your runs will suffer, meaning your runs will be less effective. That's why I've put circuit training in the D tier. But what about strides and drills? Some people say they are amazing, and some people say that they make no difference. So should we do any of that? Let's just quickly discuss VO2 max intervals first. Whenever I would approach racing season in the spring, I would always have VO2 max intervals on my program. Something like a 4x4 minute at 95 to 100% of maximum effort with a 2-minute rest. What has always been fun to me is that whenever I started doing VO2 max intervals, then it would be so hard just to do 2 or 3 times 4 minutes, and I would feel like I was dying. So when I looked at my program and I did the first 4x4 minutes, and I could see that during the coming weeks, I would have to do 7x4 minutes, I thought to myself, I can't do that. That is just insane. But then something magical happens. It gets easier to push yourself each and every week, even though there are more on the program, and even though the heart rate is the same or even higher, somehow you get a better mental capacity to just staying with it when it hurts. And all of a sudden, you can do it for longer with a clearer head. That's because this type of workout directly improves your VO2 max capacity and your running economy, making it crucial for middle and long distance runners. The downsides are that it's highly fatiguing and it takes a lot of recovery to avoid overtraining. VO2 max intervals are a clear S tier. But then again, are they as effective as threshold training, also known as the Norwegian method? We'll get to that in a sec. But first, let's talk about strides and drills. When I became a better runner, I would start to train with better and better training groups. And I noticed something strange. The better they got, the more time they would spend doing drills and strides. And at the top national level, sometimes we would spend an hour just doing that. An example could be something like 4 to 6 times 100 meters at around 85 to 90% intensity, just focusing on running form. This type of workout improves what's called your neuromuscular coordination and your running economy, which is probably why the best in the world use them so much. They also help develop turnover and sprint mechanics without making you tired. The downsides are that it takes consistency. The benefits will compound over time, but you will have to do it for months to see real progress. Strides and drills are a clear A tier. So, what about threshold runs, or the Norwegian method? Over the last few years, the Norwegians, and especially Jakob Ingebrigtsen, have made this type of workout extremely popular. An example could be 3 times 10 minutes at threshold pace, or just below what's called the second lactate threshold. These type of workouts increases your ability to clear lactate, which is essential for long and middle distance runners. The downsides are that it takes precise pacing. If you have no idea where your second lactate threshold is, then you could be going too hard, making it a VO2 max interval instead. This will reduce how effective it is, which is why it's just not accessible for all runners. You can do a field test, which will give you an estimate, but it's just not as accurate as you measure lactate. You can also buy a measurement tool for measuring lactate. They are not that expensive, but let's be honest, most runners are not going to do that, which is why I had to put the Norwegian method in the A tier. We also need to talk about the popular Zone 2 runs. But first, let's talk about hill sprints. Every Sunday, I go for a run with one of my friends around a lake, and whenever we get to the bottom of a hill, we will do hill sprints and try to absolutely smash each other. An example could be 10 seconds all out, then we walk back down, wait for 2 minutes, go again, and we will do that 8 to 10 times. These sprints are really fun, but they also develop power and running efficiency. Another benefit is that they are lower impact compared to flat sprints because you can't run as fast, but you still get your heart rate way up. And a lower impact means less injury risk. The downsides are that it requires a steep hill, so it's not accessible to every runner, especially in flat areas. But still, hill sprints are a no-brainer A tier. But now you're probably wondering, everyone's talking about long runs. Where does those fit in? First, let's just quickly rate that slow pace Zone 2 type training. Zone 2 runs at 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate have become extremely popular over the last couple of years, primarily because of its longevity benefits. But if we look aside from that, Zone 2 training improves your oxygen deliverability and your ability to use that oxygen. It also trains your body to burn fat as fuel, which is essential for long distance endurance. Finally, it helps build your aerobic base, making it easier to recover between workouts. It's best suited for long distance runners who want to increase their capacity of going longer. The downside is that it can be overused and it has to be balanced with speed work or you're going to hit a plateau. But Zone 2 runs are 100% S tier, but it should not be the only workout you do. And there's something even better that I'll show you in a second. But what about long runs? Long runs of around 90 minutes to 2 hours improves your ability to store glycogen, also known as sugar, and to burn fat as fuel. It also builds your muscles and tendons, making it easier to withstand that race pace effort. And then it builds mental toughness and resilience. It's best for runners training for half marathons, or ultras, but the downsides are that it requires a ton of time and also the injury risk is high. It's important not to do too often or with too high of an intensity. I see that a lot. Please, when you do a long run, keep the intensity at a minimum. Still, it's a solid A tier. So what about strength training? Things like heavy squats, deadlifts, and plyometrics. This type of workout can improve your running economy by 4 to 8% and reduce your injury risk by up to 50%. It's absolutely essential for long-term performance because it will keep those injuries at bay and at the same time make you faster. Most runners ignore strength training, but it's the ultimate tool for speed and durability. It's not even an S tier. It's a God tier. And if you want to know exactly how to strength train as a runner, then check out this video next.